Alright, in this video we'll be doing a C# tutorial on 2D arrays. So in this array, in this tutorial I've set up a form. So we have two labels here, with no identifiers. Then there's a text box here called row text box, and then a text box below named call text box. And then to the right we have a label called price label, and then below we have a button called display button. So let's set up the button click event. So the identifier for the button is called display button. So we'll just reference that. Actually, we'll reference that in the constructor. So we'll say display button. Actually, here we can just say display button dot click plus equals new event handler, and we'll pass in as a parameter display button underscore click. Then below the constructor we'll create a private void, so we'll create an event handler. So we'll define it as private void display button underscore click, and it'll take parameter object sender and event argc. So we'll have two local variables, a row and a column. So we'll say int row and call. And we'll say constant int, so constant int max underscore row points to, we could just say, for example, we could just say 2, and here we can say constant int max underscore call. Just point it to 2 as well. So we'll use an initialization list to instantiate a 2D array, so a local 2D array. So we'll have a decimal type array, so we'll say decimal of array index comma. We'll call it prices, points to, so we'll have an initialization list for a 2D array. So here we'll just add some values here. So we'll have, for example, I think it's supposed to be a plane, so it's like the seating of a plane, so it's cheaper at the back and more expensive at the front. So then, for example, we could just have we'll just add some values here. So remember to add the m for decimal value. So we'll just add some values to the first row. Then we'll have another row here. So we'll just we'll have, actually, sorry, how many? We got 2, and well, we could do a bit more. Actually, so let's just stick with that for now. Okay, let's just change this to 5 and this to 3. I don't think we're using this yet, but we'll just continue. So we'll just have some more values here. Oops, sorry, I forgot the m for the first row. So they're decimal values, so we'll have we'll tag on n to it, m. So here we'll have 3, so comma, and then we'll say 375 m comma 375 comma, and then 375 m. Then we'll have a comma and then another row. So we'll just fill these with 37. We'll just go 375 for pretty much the rest. So we'll have another. So this is the third row down. We'll have about 6 of them to 375, and then 375M, and then 375. And then for the last two, actually, we'll just change this to 350. So 350M, and then 350M, comma 350M, comma 350M. And then for the final row, we'll just have here, for example, like 300M, comma 300M, 300M, and then for the last one, 300M. So there's no comma on the last row. You have to put a semicolon at the end of the initialization list. So we're going to use a try parse method now, so remember that you have to use the keyword out. So here we'll have an if block. We'll say if int.try parse. We'll pass in row text box dot text comma out row. So we're going to try to pass the row text box dot text. So we're going to pass a string as an int. So it should pass. So if it passes correctly, it should store a value in row. Otherwise, I think row is negative. It's going to equal to -1. But also, I believe that it returns a boolean. So it's a kind of a tricky method. So we'll have a nest. So for the next, there's going to be a few nests here. Actually, sorry, this isn't a nest. We're just going to check if basically it's just nested if, a nested if, not a nested loop. So we'll do the same thing. So here we'll say if int dot try parse. And we'll pass in call text box dot text, and then we'll say comma, and then the second. So for the first parameter, we'll say call text box dot text, and then comma out, and then call. And if that's true, then we'll say if row is greater than or equal to 0, and row is less than or equal to max row. So this one here, this if up here gets the selected row number. This if block here gets the selected column number. Then the next if block, make sure the row is within range. Then in this, so this one checks if it's within range of the rows. Then if that's true, then we'll nest and check if the columns are within range. So if call is greater than or equal to 0 and call is less than or equal to max underscore call. Then here we'll set the label. We'll say price label text points to prices of array index row comma call dot toString, and we'll have a formatter. We'll pass in C, and then here we'll have to do a bunch of else blocks just in case they aren't true. So here we'll have an else block here for the most inner nested if. So we'll have an else here. So here we'll say message box dot show. We'll pass a string here. Columns must be 0 through we'll end the string and then plus, and we'll add the value max call. Then we'll get out of that else and then we'll go to this if here. Below the if, we'll have another block here, an else block. Oops. So here we'll say message box.show, and then we'll say row must be 0 through, so the row must be 0 through. Plus, and then here we'll pass in max underscore row. So under that we'll have so below the last, below the, so the most outer if, we'll have an else block underneath. So we'll say else message box.show. So we'll say enter an integer for the row as a string. Okay, so what's happening here? So remember this button, click event handler is going to listen for a click event, so when a click event occurs, it's going to respond to it. It's going to define two variables here, a local row and a local call. Sets max row to 5, max call to 3. Initializes a 2D array set to a bunch of values. So so it's going to check here, it's going to try to pass the row text box. So remember when you click the event to have some data. So let me just show you the form here. So I didn't label these for some. I'll just change the names. Forgot to change the names for these. So this label, we'll change it to enter row. We'll change the text property to enter a row. Then for this text property, we'll change it to enter a call. And for this one,